Have you ever noticed that your ADHD medication works great in the morning, but then by the afternoon, 2, 3, 4 p.m., you're chasing something, and maybe that's coffee or some other caffeinated product. Maybe that's nicotine, or maybe that's even a little bit of weed to kind of help you take the edge off and re-enter the focus zone. The problem is that come sleep time or midnight, you're totally wired, you can't sleep, and the whole vicious cycle starts over again. That's not willpower problem. That's not a willpower problem. That is a cortisol loop. And I'd love to, this just came to me, it kind of spurred the moment after talking to a patient of mine. And I'd love to just share the experience and how that cortisol loop works, and more importantly, 5 levers that we at least talked about with this individual. So if you recognize yourself in any of how I opened this video, stay till the end. So the next ideas that I'd love to share, that a lot of people with ADHD are actually running on cortisol, their own stress hormone, without even realizing it. Stimulants like Vyvanse or Adderall certainly amplify dopamine and norepinephrine, but they also amplify whatever cortisol is already in the system. And when life is stressful, like work, situation arising, relationship issues, financial pressure, I'm sure you can, insert your own life stressor in that situation, right? The cortisol that is there, it acts like a second stimulant. And it's that medication, ADHD medication plus cortisol combo that feels like productivity. It makes your eyes go wide. It creates that drive, but it's also deeply unsustainable. And it truly burns out your system. And I just wrote a little note on what my patient actually said, so I'm going to read it. It said, "I'm starting to understand how much of the way I felt on my medication was me riding the high of my fear, my cortisol. That whole need for more coffee, more nicotine, more everything. It was cortisol and not ADHD." That's what my client said. And here's a key teaching point. It's when the external stressors settle, that conflict, that relationship conflict, that work conflict, when your sleep improves, the medication might feel like it's actually not working as well. However, that's actually a sign that your whole system, your whole biophysiological system is actually getting healthier because you are medicating cortisol, not just ADHD. Now, here's another key point, is that compulsive behaviors are safety seeking, not just merely pleasure seeking. When someone is using weed, alcohol, porn, food, social media, Bueller, anybody? Did I say social media? When they're using one or multiple of those things to come down, the question is not why don't they have more discipline or why do you not have more discipline? The question is, what are you trying to regulate? Because in a dysregulated nervous system, the brain, your brain, will seek whatever is the fastest available input to decrease that perceived threat or that fear. But while stimulants spike it, as we discussed, the weed, the alcohol, those other release valves bring you down. And then oftentimes you'll think you're chasing the high, but what you're actually chasing is safety. And so the moment that genuine nervous system uneasiness is improved, or that safety is established through improved sleep, improved relationships, etc., etc. The compulsive behaviors often drop dramatically on their own, not because willpower increased, but rather because the need decreased. And in the person I'm thinking of, it was the improvement of relationship and sleep that very clearly helped this individual go from daily using to once or twice a week. And the behavior tracked the nervous system state of more safety and connection, or connection and safety, not just more discipline. And here's one potential thing I see in functional medicine is that someone who's working on their sleep might be using, who has ADHD, might be using Benadryl, cannabis, high doses of melatonin. However, each of these has its potential own problem. Cannabis disrupts REM sleep architecture, blunts the restorative sleep phases, and can actually lower testosterone over time. Diphenhydramine or Benadryl, usually for most people, it causes next day cognitive fog, right? And it absolutely can cause worse sleep architecture and can develop tolerance very quickly. And there's actually a number of long-term studies that show how much it can destroy the brain in the long run. Same with cannabis too, by the way. And I'll just say a little caveat, that's nothing against cannabis. It can be used very wisely as a medicine. What I'm talking about is using it as a crutch for too long and in the wrong way, wrong manner, wrong dosing. And then there's melatonin. And there's a lot of literature out there going both ways on this. Again, I think there's a time and a place. I'm very certain there's a time and a place to use it in a wise way. However, long-term, chronically high doses can suppress your hormonal system in an undesirable way, including potentially lowering testosterone in the long run. And so in a cruel twist of irony, I guess, all three of those, while they can help very short-term sleep, they actually can have undesirable long-term effects on the brain and sleep architecture pattern ability, thereby kind of pulling the rug out from exactly what would actually help your brain work better from an ADHD standpoint, which is a better, healthier, longer-term brain function. Now, in this individual who I'm, sharing our experience together, I will share what I'm going to offer. However, this is not medical advice. I am not suggesting that you do this to yourself. Please understand that this is just kind of using my frameworks, how I think through things, and there is a right time and a wrong time to use every tool in the toolbox. So I'm all about natural medicine. I'm all about Western prescriptions, again, when used wisely, and everything in between. And so I'll share 5 things that, if any of them resonate with you, talk to your own physician or medical health care provider. So for this individual, there's a question about using gabapentin, which I'm not a big fan of. An option that it presented was guanfacine or guanfacine, not to be confused with guaifenesin, which is used in cough medication. Mucinex is guaifenesin. This is guanfacine, which is, and it can be used as an adjunct in ADHD. However, it's non-stimulating, and it can actually be really useful taken before bed to help sleep onset, and then with concentration improvement the next day. And much, much better in the long run than using something like gabapentin or going up to a maximal dose of any of the other ADHD medications. A second potential lever for this individual to consider was the peptide C-LANC or C-LANC. Not sure how to pronounce it. What is the best way? Potato, but I'm going to call it C-LANC. Maybe I'll say C-LANC. But this, I think of this as kind of the clean ADHD peptide. And it can be used in the morning and then maybe a second dose if needed later morning or early afternoon. It supports focus with calm without stimulating the adrenal axis, though, or the cortisol spike as much. And so really it can have this effect of someone not needing to feel like they need to reach for that caffeine or nicotine in the afternoon, or the, comer downer of weed that I was talking about at the beginning of this video. And then for number 3, for this individual, I was thinking that something like binaural beats might help. And I don't own Brain.fm. I don't have any stock in them. I'm not an affiliate for them, but I like Brain.fm. There's a lot of other apps out there now that use binaural beats, but it's basically just sending frequencies. So you would wear headphones, put them on really low, because using long-term headphones is not probably that great for your hearing. However, you put them on just barely audible, and at least with Brain.fm, they have different versions of focus frequencies and or sleep frequencies. So it's something that you can use during the day to concentrate better, to do creative work, learning work, deep work, or even or using it closer to bedtime to calm down your brain activity. Super safe, well-researched, and effective with very little downside. And then lever 4 for this individual was, and I'm going to butcher the name, so forgive me, but 𝗙𝗿𝗲𝗏 plus NAC as part of the morning stack, really, because they can kind of together improve testosterone and cortisol balance, and NAC specifically improves glutathione. And so we're talking about rebalancing the brain neuroinflammatory axis, which just makes for a happier brain. And a happier brain responds to the dopamine that you naturally make, but in this case, without having to chase making more. And then lever 5 is magnesium with L-threonate, or rather, I should say, the L-threonate version of it, plus or minus a little bit of glycinated magnesium. Those 2 specific forms of magnesium tend to be really great at supporting the GABA signaling aspect of our nervous system and kind of calming us down. And so this can be really great in the afternoon. So rather than the weed, go for the magnesium combination, as it just enhances that nervous system, coming down, really, but in a really healthy way. And most people are actually deficient in magnesium. But I think the point is that it helps the transition from focus into a rest and relaxed state. But it can also happen without a crash or a craving sensation. So again, none of that medical advice. Take it to your provider. Do your own research. You don't have to do all 5 levers at once. And there may be different levers for you. I would encourage you just to find 1 or 2. Really just one. One step at a time can make a big difference over the long run. If any of this resonated with you, if any of it was useful to you, please subscribe. You can also check out the description for some options, some very affordable, super helpful options. And Dr. Yoshi Ram, thank you very much.